I've been many places, and I've been lucky to go many places. But where I come from is probably the most important thing. And I come from this amazing family that has lots of people. We all started in Mississippi. My family started in Mississippi and then somehow made its way to the great Northwest, to Portland, Oregon, which is where I lived, where I grew up. And it continues to be perhaps the thing that influences me most. It's through my father's love of life and effort and storytelling and possibility and a sense of what was right that really places me and grounds me even still in my life. And then there are, of course, all the other artists that I'm constantly thinking about, and I'm constantly trying to pay attention to. Old artists, new artists, dead artists, living artists, contemporary artists, classical artists, painters, other photographers, whether it be, those of, the works of Roy D. Corallo, or people like Lou Draper, or Robert Frank, or Todd Papageorge, or Edward Weston, or Walker Evans, etc. Thinking about them a great deal. And for a long, long time, I got up very, very, very early in the morning and thought about other artists and looked at what other artists were doing. And every time I looked at what other artists were doing, it got me up. The artists to what they do, their ability to live with themselves, their ability to try to attempt to negotiate this skin every morning, I think, is absolutely astounding. I have a great, great respect for what other artists do. And so I try to spend as much time with them as I possibly can. There was a moment when I was, fascinated with folklore, and I studied folklore, and then I decided that I was really interested in quilts and quilting, and at a certain point a few years ago went down to Gee's Bend to just shake the hands of some of those extraordinary women who had made these amazing things. I mean, I just had to touch Loretta Pickling. I had to touch her. I had to see her with my own eyes, with my own skin. An amazing woman, one of the great, 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 great artists of Gee's Bend, one of the top ones. And so other artists are always helping me to understand something about myself, something about the possibility, and something about the directions that one can take. I was just with David Hammond the other day, always fascinating, always teaching me something else about the possibilities, these ideas about, who's illuminating the path for you, who is walking on the same path along with you. Even when I don't really understand the work, or sometimes even like it. But I'm always looking and trying to learn something. And one of the things that that I've really come to is that it really doesn't matter if I, quote, like it or not. What matters is that I understand the effort that goes into the making. The effort is extraordinary. Even when it's a failure, it's extraordinary, right? Even when it's a failure. These ideas about, encoding the skin and marking the skin, I think has been really important for any number of artists, and certainly for myself. And Mark Scala is looking at Made in the Flesh. Painted for the flesh, made in the flesh.
Paint made flesh.
Paint
made flesh.
Paint made flesh, right? This idea of marking this body and the way in which artists have put themselves on display. And at a certain point, of course, I realized that I was also putting myself on display, and that I came out of a very deep tradition of artists behaving in a certain way, acting in a certain way, acting out in a certain way. Whether it be like James Luna, who puts himself before you, or someone like Ellen Ranton, who decides to be the black ballerina. Somebody was asking me recently about, my sort of interest in storytelling. And, indeed, I was as informed by my father as I was by people like Ellen Ranton and David Anton, who were extraordinary storytellers, extraordinary people who dealt with text. And I encountered them as a graduate student when I was at UCSD. They were very important formative to me. You know, going beyond this idea of this sort of Afro-American tradition, maybe, and really getting into sort of deeper territory of what it means to use language.